Tonight, we're going to talk about a time when the DC films were king and the Marvel films were second rate. That's right, it's the 80s.
Yeah, it's hard to believe nowadays. So stick around. Hello and welcome to my side laundry room. My name is Rob,
And I'm Chris.
and we're going to take a look at the long road that Marvel had to journey to get where they are today. It's real easy for people to say in, what year was it? 2008?
Right?
Stumbling
Fails.
and picking themselves up along the way.
A lot of fails.
So I think those times need to be honored to a degree.
But I think what we're going to do tonight, we're not going to talk about those 70 films that we all know. The Doctor Strange, the Spider-Man TV series, the...
With the giant, like, phone, or not, like, power cable.
Those were bad. I mean, they were, but they weren't. I mean,
They fit the time.
They fit the
They fit the
time.
time.
They fit the time. And we're not going to talk about the Hulk TV show, even though that had a lasting impression, probably more than any of the other stuff that we just mentioned. But we will talk about the one little Marvel film that started in the 80s, and that was Howard the Duck. And everyone kind of tries to clear that from their memory.
No, they like to firmly put it in the compost pile that it's manure. When
There was a lot of heavy weight behind that film.
there was.
You know
it's
what I
a
mean?
George Lucas
It is.
movie.
That's the thing.
So for anybody that sits there and goes, everything Lucas made was genius and Disney's ruining it, no, sorry. He did that himself. But anyway, we're getting off topic. I, for one, am a fan of Howard the Duck.
I don't hate it.
It could be because I have a like of anthropomorphic animals.
But yet again, if you go back in time, there was nothing like it.
No.
So if you were any kind of comic fan, anything like that, it seemed like we gobbled up.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But, I mean, it's not Shakespeare. I'm not going to say it's something it isn't. You know what I mean?
It had Leah Thompson in it.
It did. And there was
great.
it was actually kind of funny. I mean, parts
Tim
of it
Robbins was great in it.
that
Jeffrey Jones.
Yeah. Yep.
Until he started chewing up the scenery as the alien that chewed up the scenery. But besides that, he was great in it as well.
But if you think about it, it's amazing anything ever got picked up again. Because you go from Howard the Duck, and then at that point, if I'm not mistaken, that is when Cameron ended up buying the Spider-Man rights, because he sat on those forever.
Yes, he did.
You know what I mean? And so if we go back to the late 80s and early 90s, there was always rumors.
Yes.
There was always rumors about
In the
this
back
film.
of the Comic Scene magazines, it would be 3-4 pages of just little black and white blurbs of where movies were standing.
Well, remember who was originally cast to be Iron Man? When the first script was kicked out?
Tom Cruise?
No.
Even before that?
It was before that.
Who?
Tom Selleck.
That'd be pretty cool.
But I'm saying that was one of the original rumors floating around Hollywood in the late 80s.
I could get behind that.
Well, I could have too. That's not the point. You know what I mean?
I'm
But,
just saying.
I thought, but I remember that, like you said, in the Comic Scene magazine. And I didn't buy Comic Scene, and it seemed like all of the local places by us, it was like hit or miss if it was even on your news shelf. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. You would pick it up one month.
Yeah, and
wouldn't
then
find
you
it
never
again
see it for like
3
2 months.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. But that was the big talk, was, and then the big news was, of course, after Batman in '89, which made like fucking $1 trillion, that Cameron had bought the rights to make and produce a Spider-Man film. So the excitement, the further,
Yeah.
I remember those times. You know what I mean? I remember those, and
And mind you, this is Cameron, who was famous for Terminator
At that time in particular, yes.
and Aliens
And Abyss.
and Abyss.
Yep.
Which is still a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a much different landscape, if you can remember. This is getting off of the Marvel train a little bit, but independent comics were being snatched up and produced into movies left and right.
Mm-hmm.
You even had small B-grade companies making comic book-esque movies that were better than what we were seeing.
That had
Like, oh, what was the one? Black Scorpion, which was
Yeah, I forgot
which was a
about that.
TNA movie, but it had cool
Yeah, it did.
superhero
No, it
stuff
did.
in
It did. It did. It had very cool superhero stuff. And then, of course, we've talked about Rocketeer, which was
Yes.
an independent character.
That only had like 3 issues. It
If
was
that.
just a one-shot
Yep.
kind of story. But even that movie, I mean, they're doing a sequel. I think
Trying to get it
the
off the
Disney
ground, yep.
streaming service, where it's going to be a girl now.
Yep.
It's the like his daughter or something.
Something like that.
So that could be very interesting. But a movie like that has, I think the independents had a better shot because they didn't have the money.
No.
Hey, we're going to give you 25 grand for this script. Sure, that sounds great.
But then in like 88 or 89, we heard rumors of a Captain America film.
Yes.
And I remember sitting in theaters and actually seeing the trailer,
Really?
the teaser, and all it was a shield. That's it. That's all it was a shield.
Wow.
And it said like coming fall of 90 or whatever it was.
hope
But I
it
mean,
came all
but
right.
so, but it never materialized. You know what I mean? Then all of a sudden, I think in like 94, 95, the video popped up in your local mom and pop, video stores. Well,
Oh,
then,
yeah, and it was, I've heard of this.
yeah, that was a big thing, And then in 94 or 92, I think we heard the rumors of Fantastic Four. And I remember like trying to find out who's in it. Who's playing Doom, who's playing Reed, and I'm a kid. God, 12, 6, whatever it was, years old. God, no, I'm probably 15 at that point, trying to figure out who was in.
School,
Yeah, you're right. We were in high school. And then, yet again, it seemed like the comic shows is the first time I saw it.
Oh, yeah, the
because it was like
bootlegs
bootlegs of it. Because it was never supposed to get out.
No.
It was never supposed to get out.
But in the middle of that, we had Punisher, which
I was excited about.
I was, and I still loved it at the time.
But it
Because,
came out at the worst summer ever.
well, not even that, but the fact of they tried their hardest to not make it a comic book movie. All they had to do
I
was
think
simply
everyone
put
blames it on that, but I think if you look back at that summer, that was like the summer of sequels. It was like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It was Ghostbusters 2. It was Gremlins 2. It was like every freaking monster film, you know what I mean, from 4 or 5 years previously was getting a sequel that summer, and then plopped in the middle of August somewhere, I think, was Punisher. And I don't even remember seeing like trailers for it, or I don't even remember a theater having it.
No.
It seemed like another film that all of a sudden I show up one day at, mom and pop video store name here and renting the movie.
Yeah, Errol's Video and all those that we hit in town. Yeah. But,
I mean, at that point, Dolph Lundgren was known for Rocky IV,
Red Scorpion.
Red Scorpion, was a Showdown in Little Tokyo or whatever with
Yeah.
Brandon Lee.
Yeah.
Those were the films he was in. So that was like, everyone's going to laugh when I say this, but I felt like there was real star power in that film.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? For the time. So, it wasn't that long after that Universal Soldier got made. It was not long,
And yet, was it that was based on a comic or Time Cop? Time Cop was actually based on a
I
comic.
think it was the other way around.
I don't know.
I think Dark Horse got the rights and made a movie or comic off of I know, shocking Dark Horse, but
But the thing is, like even Men in Black, that was a comic.
that was a comic.
I mean, but these were comics that you couldn't even find at your local comic store because they were such limited runs, low prints,
Extremely low.
and even if you found it, it would be in a quarter bin. They weren't garnering huge prices for them. But Men in Black was a phenomenon.
Yeah.
But then you have little old Marvel just sitting there.
and they couldn't. I mean, the story of Spider-Man has been rumored and talked about for years. And if anybody really knows the full ins and outs of that, that was one of the most convoluted messes in history to get that film out of Cameron's hands into someone else's production company, which ended up landing at Sony, Columbia, TriStar, or whatever it was. And then, of course, finally got made with Tobey Maguire.
That's
William
why
Dafoe.
I'm impressed. Little segue here that Battle Angel Alita is finally coming out because Cameron's had the rights to that for
Since the 90s.
20 years.
Yeah, every bit. But Marvel films struggled through the 90s. And really, DC was king.
Oh, yeah.
Because the Batman films were coming out
Or
on a
even-
semi-regular basis. Go ahead, sorry.
At least half of the Christopher Reeves Superman movies
Mm-hmm.
were tour de force.
All the way
The
up to Richard Pryor.
benchmark. Right. They were the benchmark.
They were.
But then Tim Burton's Batman then breached.
Created
Yes.
the new
ceiling
benchmark.
to
Yep.
that, yes.
But something happened really before even Spider-Man. And it's not given enough credit, not anymore. And that was Blade.
Yes. Well, the thing is, it's weird. People are now discovering it. Of like, because it was the first Marvel solely produced, I believe, through New Line.
Yes.
But they finally.
And what is
put-
New Line a subsidiary of?
I don't know.
Time Warner. I find humor in that. Sorry.
That is
It's-
a weird
yeah,
little roundabout there. But they were finally able to put their stamp on something, and it was damn good.
The first Blade movie is a great film.
I like them all.
Oh, I do too, but I mean,
Yes.
I think it's a great film, and yet again, go back in time, there's nothing like it.
No, definitely not. It's a good urban horror.
Uh-huh.
It stays pretty close to the comic roots of it to a
But-
degree.
But here's the thing that's great about Blade that isn't given enough credit. They took a character that was so rooted and dated in the 70s. Okay? Because I mean, he went around with the afro and a ox blood jacket from the 70s. I mean,
Huge blue
huge big, yeah,
blockers.
exactly.
Stakes all up his bandolier.
So if you ever watch Venture Brothers, he looked more like
Oh, what is that dude's name?
yeah, the three of
With
them.
the blood eye.
Yeah,
I got my
yeah.
blood eye.
I got my blood eye. But Blade jumped into the 20th century because of those films.
Oh, yeah.
Because the look.
And I'll give credit 110% to Wesley Snipes. for
Oh,
that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if it was up to Wesley, we would have seen the Black Panther film
Oh, yes.
20 years ago. You know what I mean? Not now. You know what I mean? Which, don't get me wrong, I love Cedric Boseman. I think he's fantastic as T'Challa. But
It would have been a different generation, a different type of movie.
if he would have gotten his way,
Mm-hmm.
he was pushing for those films. I mean, Blade was not the main character he wanted to play.
Right.
Because I mean, even the script that was floating around was him as T'Challa, and there was talk of Ving Rhames being
Killmonger?
no, Man-Ape.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? That was going to be the big arch villain in the
Oh,
film.
that'd be pretty cool.
It would have been cool. I would have went and seen that with bells on. But anyway, that was a great film. But without that, I don't think X-Men would have gotten made.
No. Definitely not.
You know,
It's just sad because of Marvel's financial problems.
in the
Within
90s.
the House of Ideas, within the comics,
Mhm.
they had to sell off all their major players. But are we, for clarification as we move on, are
Mhm.
we talking just of Marvel, or do you want to bring in the X-Men movie to this?
I think you have to.
I mean,
Because the
for-
X-Men movies got them out of the financial difficulties they were in from
yes,
the 90s. You know what I mean? So
And
when the
they-
hedge fund manager pumped and dumped Marvel,
Right.
and then the liquidator came in and purchased them, and then that's when the sell-off happened. He was selling his rights to anybody.
Mm.
And that's, of course, how Avi Aaron became a Hollywood player.
Mm-hmm.
But without the X-Men, without the Blades sales, and of course, ultimately Spider-Man landing at Sony, which we talked about, Marvel could have easily been liquidated and broken up and sold into different organizations and different aspects of it, but it didn't. It worked out the way it was, and of course Jimmy Palmiotti took over Marvel, straightened the ship up there.
Yes.
That we're talking late
Yeah.
90s at this
Now,
point.
I mean, it might not be a true Marvel film, but the X-Men movies made comic movies viable.
and profitable.
For the first time. Because you could say Blade, it was a success, but most people didn't follow the timeline back to it being a comic book. Now, as a sidebar, just a thought I had.
Sure.
Could you say that Conan was a Marvel movie?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Just as a train of, just as a thought.
Sure, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Because when you look at posters of the late 70s from Marvel, Conan's front and center. Howard the Duck's front and center. Where's X-Men? Not on it.
Well,
You know what I mean?
yeah, well, but
But I'm just saying that the success of the comic probably helped propel that to be, hey, let's make this movie because the kids are reading the crap out of this. It's not a kids' movie, but it was still in the public consciousness because of the comic. People weren't digging up Robert Howard books and reading them; they were reading the comics.
well, they were when Frazetta was drawing the covers.
Ye-
Prior to
yes,
that,
yes,
no, you're
yes.
exactly right. But
during like the second coming
Yes,
of the pulp,
yes.
pulp novel, yeah.
But I mean, I think all of those led to. I really believe this in my heart of hearts. All those led to X-Men.
Yes.
And I think without all of that minor success that we talked about, and a lot of failures, because we kind of glanced over the Captain America film and the Fantastic Four films to get to Blade, but those films were failures.
They were.
And it was so bad that no one even thought that to get them out and to distribute them. You know what I mean? It wasn't until the diehard fans asking and searching and looking and people getting master copies and putting them out there illegally. I mean, that was how Fantastic Four hit the market. It was a completely illegal bootleg copy.
That's how I saw it.
Well, that's how most of us saw it. But if Bryan Singer hadn't done X-Men, if the Blade films and Wesley Snipes spearheading that, which is exactly what that was.
Yes.
Wesley's the one who got those off the ground. If that hadn't happened, you never would have gotten a major art house director like Ang Lee to do The Incredible Hulk. You know what I mean? Because it was Spider-Man was a huge hit, the first one, with William Dafoe, Tobey Maguire, and Kirsten
Dunst.
Yeah. That got Ang Lee interested to make The Incredible Hulk. Now, I know everyone has their issues with that film, and I don't hate it. I don't love it. I don't hate it. But honestly, we got two of the best Marvel films in that era.
Yes.
Okay? You had, remember who directed the second Blade film?
Guillermo del Toro.
Right.
When nobody knew who he was.
When he was a nobody. Right.
I'm like, this is the dude that did Devil's Backbone. I gotta see this.
But I mean, he basically got that film, and it wasn't long after that they handed him Hellboy. It wasn't that long. I think Blade 2 is one of the best films of that early era. Okay.
Yes, he brought character to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ron Perlman's character. I speak now to turn, but what is his name? The dude that plays Daryl in Walking Dead's in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Norman
Reedus. Yes.
But I think that is one of the quintessential films, personally. And I think that Spider-Man 2 is probably to date,
yes,
the best Spider-Man film. I like Homecoming. I think Homecoming's a good film. But Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock is the best Spider-Man film.
It's vastly different. Just to talk about the Spider-Man movies real quick. Spider-Man 2 is a very simple story. Homecoming convolutes itself, and that's my only problem with it. It has too many jumping around parts. Where Spider-Man 2, you can open a comic and get that same story. So maybe Homecoming is a more of a contemporary
version
that I am unaware of. I loved it. I'm not saying anything.
No, I'm not saying
Tom
anything
Holland's
either. Fantastic.
awesome.
I love him.
Best
Absolutely.
actor to play Spider-Man to date.
But
First off,
I
because he's
love-
not 35 years old.
Well,
like
that's
Tobey
also
Maguire.
helpful. But I love Spider-Man 2 because to me, it's the first time you really feel that he's a hero.
Yes.
Okay? In the first film, he's trying to figure out who he is, what his powers are, and he's fighting this crazy asshole Green Goblin.
Number 2 has the subway scene, right?
Yes.
Yes. That is heroics at its best, right?
Correct. And you
Yes.
get the full sense of his heroism.
Yes.
I also think X-Men 1 is very good,
Yeah.
but X-Men 2 is excellent.
Yeah.
That is my favorite.
I'll even say I like a lot of aspects of 3.
Aspects of it, yes.
Yes.
There, but as by and large, I think it was a terrible, terrible way to try to do Dark Phoenix. That just it just didn't.
Yes.
You
And the
know,
Morlocks.
yes, and
We
that's-
just got little glimpses of things that really needed more time.
But I think those sequels of those 3 films perpetuated that launch point.
Yes.
That of course ends up being Iron Man.
Yes.
I think if those films hadn't been, all of those sequels, I think are far better than most of the first movies. Now, there are people out there right now that's arguing with me saying that Spider-Man 1 was far better than Spider-Man 2, or X-Men 1 was better than X-Men 2, whatever. And that's fine. You can definitely make that argument. I won't dispute that. I
agree.
mean, those
I
are
agree.
good films. I just always had a better, I always liked the Spider-Man of that time, those films better, because it was Spider-Man. That's Spider-Man.
You know
it's
what
in
made
his
Spider-Man
costume.
2 better right off the bat? She calls him Tiger. Right there. That.
Well, but at no point do you say that's not Spider-Man. Because it looks like fucking Spider-Man. He acts like Spider-Man. Okay, the X-Men films, this whole argument of blue and yellow spandex doesn't look good on screen. No disputing that. I do not dispute that probably would
I
not have...
dispute it now that we have seen costumes on
If it
screen.
wasn't for Ryan Reynolds being a prick, you wouldn't, because those costumes to me in the Deadpool films are far closer to anything that you and I would have called X-Men. Okay,
That's why I haven't seen Deadpool 2. I'll say that right
it's
up front.
fantastic.
It's out on Blu-ray now, so I'll try to get it. But that to me felt like, in a nutshell, one of the best comic book movies, because there's so many things going on in the backgrounds that they don't call out.
Mhm.
They're fighting on a helicarrier.
Why is the best
and-
Colossus in Deadpool? Right? Why is the best looking X-Men outfit in Deadpool? Okay, because people at Fox thought none of this was going to work on the
Right.
big screen.
But we also had a road already
Mhm.
laid out.
I agree. I just like the fact that Reynolds flipped him a middle finger. That's
Yeah.
all. That's to me. You know what I mean? I'm not going to.
And Juggernaut in 2. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I mean,
He's fantastic. It's
Yeah.
Juggernaut. It's what he should be. It's not.
Ryan Reynolds played him, from what I understand.
Yeah, he did the voice.
mocap and
Yep.
stuff for it.
But those films in the 90s and the early 2000s, they paved the way. They really did. And nobody's going to admit this, but I don't think if you hadn't had Christopher Nolan's Batman films in those time frames,
Right.
okay, it's a DC property, but yet again, it proved the viability of comic characters making big money at the theater.
Yes.
And if it almost became the chicken, because when Batman Begins made the astronomical amount of money, you can't tell me there wasn't people at Marvel saying,
Salivating, yeah.
what can we do?
Plus,
Now-
he brought it back from the dead from what Joel Schumacher did to it. He made it a mockery
Wow.
because he went back to the 60s kitsch with it. No offense to George Clooney, because I know he hangs his head like he's to blame. No.
Mm-mm.
But when that could have been the nails in the coffin, but Nolan just brought it back up. And the thing is, I know
how did Nolan bring it up though? He catered to the fanboy,
Mhm.
just like the Marvel films of the same era, early era,
right.
catered to the fanboy. Okay, the X-Men films. Well, it's a no-brainer. Who is the X-Men going to follow? It's got to be Magneto. You know what I mean? Yeah, we got to do that. Okay, who's Spider-Man going to fight? Well, it's got to be Green Goblin. It's got to be Doc Ock. You know what I mean? It's got to be. Let's cater to these fanboys. We don't need to rehash. So what does Nolan do? He picks the furthest villain from it because everyone assumed it was going to be Joker. No, it's Ra's al Ghul. Fanboys everywhere went, oh, that's great, that's awesome.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I love those films, but I believe in my heart of hearts, and as a matter of fact, I think they overshadowed the Fantastic Four films because those were good attempts, The first ones.
They're not bad.
I'm not talking about the
Yeah.
the first two with Michael Chiklis and
They're not bad.
no, they're not bad.
Hell, we got a Silver Surfer in a movie. Who would have ever have thunk that?
Not me. The biggest failure of that film was no Galactus. And
Galactus was a cloud.
But I'm saying that was the biggest failure of those films.
That's the same failure that Green Lantern suffers, because Parallax shouldn't have been that.
Agreed. But those films are important to get to where we got, I think, with Iron Man and Robert Downey Jr.
Yes. I agree.
So,
Because there was a part of me, believe me, when, hey, they're making Iron Man. Who cares?
well, I remember thinking, again? Like, because all the crap from the 80s and 90s where there's a script written and it's getting, you know what I mean? Okay, so is Tom Cruise still playing it? Because that was the last rumor we had heard.
And Jon Favreau, I mean, I loved him, Swingers, and what was the one, his follow-up to that with, anyway.
Very Bad Things.
Well,
with
he was
him and
just
Christian
an
Slater.
actor in that,
Yeah,
I
well,
believe.
okay.
But you know, that kind of piqued my interest, and I think that was how Marvel kind of started to set themselves apart. They went with directors that you wouldn't assume, because even Christopher Nolan, he was doing deep, mind-altering detective stories with Memento and Insomnia. That, okay, Batman would work under his tutelage, and it did. But when you have Jon Favreau, it's like, what?
Well, he just gotten done making Elf.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So
Nobody expected that to go to that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it worked. Obviously, it worked.
But I remember seeing that first trailer, and they had Savis Iron Man playing over it.
Of course.
I mean, yeah.
But I mean, tell us we're wrong on this one. You know, tell us that, you know, are we missing something on this? You know what I mean? Are we missing something on this early stages? That's what I want to know from you guys. Because I think, you know, I think these are important to talk about to get to what everyone talks about now.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Marvel had a long road to hoe. And they did it. But we grew up with a different appreciation. So when somebody nitpicks the latest one, Infinity War, it's like, yeah.
These are great films, and I think we'll take an opportunity to talk about that generation that we're now in.
Yes.
Because I consider Iron Man to Infinity War really phase one, because this isn't slowing down anytime soon. I know they talk about phase one being Cap, Iron Man 1 and 2, and Thor, and you know, this was their phase one. I think it's a little bit deeper than that. I think this is a bookend, a chapter right now that we're currently coming to the end of. I think this is going to get pushed right back out again. You know what I mean?
I agree.
So,
we'll have to talk about that at a later date.
yes, I agree.
So anyway, this has been my side laundry room. My name is Rob.
I'm Chris.
Keep being rad,
Stay dorky.
and we'll catch you next time. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit the subscribe button for some more awesome videos. We also have a couple here on the side you might be interested in. And until next time, thanks for watching, keep being rad, and stay dorky.